Isaac Asimov's Foundation is perhaps the most influential science fiction book series of all time. It details the rise and fall of galactic society. Today we discuss the capital world city of Trantor. Oh no, it's not.
It's me, Organism 9186 from the planet Trolleon 897, and I'm back to tell you that this channel sucks.
Yeah, you said that last time.
Also, you don't know anything about the Foundation series.
Actually, I'm a big fan of the work of Asimov.
You're only covering Foundation because the new show's coming out and you want to get views.
Getting views is like the whole point of YouTube, and anyway, I've been covering the Foundation books even before I knew there was a show.
Doesn't matter anyway because the new Foundation's gonna be woke garbage just like Dune and Star Wars. Gail Dornick is being portrayed by a black woman. That matters even more than Leia Kynes and Dune.
Oh yeah? Because I thought it mattered even less.
Of course you would say that. Gail Dornick and Leia Kynes are both essential to the plots of both series, and they are both white and male. Making them female and black ruins everything.
Gail Dornick doesn't even exist after like the first few pages of the first Foundation book. They skip decades and centuries and he's not even mentioned.
How would you even know?
Because I have the entire Foundation trilogy right here, and Gail Dornick is not mentioned after the psychohistorian section of the first book, which is only a few pages. And are you really gonna question me on Dune knowledge? I mean, I don't mean to brag, but just look at my channel.
Yeah, whatever. It's obvious that this is all just a part of a conspiracy by the media and liberal Hollywood to destroy science fiction. All the evidence is there. You'd have to be blind not to see it.
Is it though?
Well, duh. You just choose to ignore it because you're a liberal moron.
Okay, I don't have to keep taking this. Computer, eject.
Of course, ejecting me again because you can't handle criticism.
I can handle criticism just fine, but can you, Mr. Organism 9186 from the planet Trolleon 897?
I am a hyper-evolved interdimensional being. I am immune to criticism.
Alright, not very promising, but if you really don't want me to eject you, just sit there and be quiet for a little bit. In fact, come sit on the couch with me. So we were going to focus on the capital world of Asimov's galactic empire, Trantor, today, but since we've had the intrusion, I think we'll focus on a different topic. To answer the question, has science fiction gone woke, we first have to answer the question, what does woke even mean? I have noticed personally that there are a few distinct ways in which people use this word, and two very distinct ways in which I can identify most clearly. The first is in a positive sense. In this sense, the word woke refers to a person that is aware and resistant to the various social disparities of society. The other way I see it used is in the pejorative sense, wherein wokeness is viewed as a form of virtue signaling, a kind of pretentious way of appearing as though you care about social issues when you really don't.
Haha, like Dennis Villeneuve and Apple TV.
Shut up, Organism 9186. Anyway, so to answer the question, has science fiction gone woke, we have to figure out which definition of the word we're actually using. But the problem is, most of the time I have no idea which version of wokeness that people are referring to. So, for the purposes of this video, we're just going to discuss both. Now, there are a lot of sci-fi names that people slap the term woke onto, but for the purposes of this video, I will stick to the ones I know best, Dune and Foundation, and maybe a little bit of Star Trek later on. Let's start with Foundation, since we're already going to talk about it anyway. So as, Organism mentioned, Asimov's Foundation is being adapted into a TV series, which makes me excited because Asimov's Foundation books are some of my favorite science fiction books to read. I've mentioned before, Asimov's classic sci-fi series is set in a gigantic galactic civilization with 25 million inhabited worlds. In Asimov's Foundation books, there is a strong emphasis on human conflict being resolved without violence. One of Asimov's most famous quotes state, "Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent." The book Prelude to Foundation states that the capital world of Trantor is inhabited by tens of billions of people, and it also states that the world is full of diversity.
Bullshit. Everyone knows diversity was invented in 2015 by liberal elites too.
Organism 9186, you were like 2 seconds from being ejected.
Okay.
In the Foundation universe, Harry Seldon is from a planet called Helicon. The population of Helicon is almost exclusively white people, who are referred to as Westerners. But of course, the people of the Empire have no idea why that term is used because they don't remember Old Earth. Now when Seldon goes to Trantor, he encounters an Asian man named Randa for the first time, and they have this exchange. Randa, an instructor in psychology, was a little man, short and plump, with a round, cheerful face and an almost perpetual smile. He had a sallow complexion and the narrowed eyes so characteristic of people on millions of worlds. Selden knew that appearance well, for there were many of the great mathematicians who had borne it, and he had frequently seen their holograms. Yet on Helicon he had never seen one of these Easterners. By tradition they were called that, though no one knew why, and the Easterners themselves were said to resent the term to some degree. But again, no one knew why. "There are millions of us here on Trantor," Randa had said, smiling with no trace of self-consciousness when Selden, on first meeting, had not been able to repress all trace of startled surprise. "You'll also find a lot of Southerners, dark skins, tightly curled hair. Did you ever see one?" "Not on Helicon," muttered Selden. "All Westerners on Helicon, eh? How dull. But it doesn't matter. It takes all kinds." So you can see here in this scene that Selden for the first time is encountering diversity. He's never even seen an Asian person or a black person before. Randa is even taken a bit aback by the lack of diversity on Helicon and even calls it dull. But ultimately it doesn't matter because they end up working together anyway. So Isaac Asimov was thinking about diversity in his universe enough to point out the fact that Hari Seldon grew as a person after encountering more diversity.
Asimov was a hippie anyway. All that crap about solutions through nonviolence, that doesn't matter anyway. Why has Leia Kynes, a white male, been cast as a black female in Dune? Obviously SJW garbage.
Well, first off, Leia Kynes is half Fremen, so not exactly white, and also it didn't really matter to anyone in David Lynch's Dune when they cast him as an extremely pale Caucasian.
David Lynch's Dune will always be more true to the book than Denis Villeneuve's movie.
Okay, Villeneuve. And no, David Lynch's Dune is actually highly inaccurate. I did a whole video on the problems with that movie. In the Dune novels, the Fremen are descended from the Zensunni Wanderers, a people who traveled for centuries throughout the galaxy facing new oppression on each world. They were slaves, persecuted and chased from planet to planet, picking up new genes, mixing, diversifying along the way before finally ending up on Arrakis. It's part of the reason they are so resilient, as well as the fact that they were shaped by the harsh deserts of Arrakis. And even the language and words used in Fremen culture imply that they are a result of a smattering together of many different cultures. For instance, the word Zensunni itself. Zen suggests the influence of Buddhism, and Sunni refers to a branch of Islam.
But
the Fremen have words like Mahdi, Muad'Dib, Sayadina. All of these imply the influence of non-white cultures. And also the fact that the Fremen have lived in the deep deserts of Arrakis for many generations suggests that at the very least their skin should have darkened somewhat. So for David Lynch's Dune to portray every single Fremen character as pale white completely betrays the source material. And it goes even further. Why is Dr. Yueh a white guy? Does the surname Yueh mean nothing? And Duke Leto himself is described as having olive skin. Sorry, but Jürgen Prochnow's very German skin does not pass for olive in any light. So if you really want to get pedantic about skin color, what we've seen from Denis Villeneuve's Dune is far more representative of what is in the novel.
Okay, maybe Lynch changed some things, but that doesn't mean Dune was pushing some kind of ridiculous diversity argument. That's ridiculous.
Actually, it's not. That was one of the main points of Leto II's Golden Path. You are familiar with the machinations of the God Emperor, the famine times, and the scattering of humanity that occurred after his reign ended, right?
Yeah, I've read the book. I know who Duke Leto is.
No, not Duke Leto. Leto II, twin to Ghanima, whose name meant spoil of war.
Yeah, I know about them.
You haven't read Children of Dune, have you?
No.
Yeah, thought so. It figures, but it's okay. You're learning now. And also, Organism, it's okay to admit you don't know things sometimes. We're all human. Well, you're some kind of floating energy orb thing, but it's the same principle. Anyway, Leto II did what Paul could not and led mankind down the path to salvation, while Paul remained indecisive in the face of the choices laid out before him. I go more into this in my video here on why Paul shouldn't actually be viewed as the hero of the Dune series. And Leto II even heavily implies to Paul that the reason that he was able to choose a path for humanity while Paul could not was due to the fact that he had Fremen blood. "It is sad you were never really Fremen," Leto said. We Fremen know how to commission the Arifa. Our judges can choose between evils. It has always been that way for us. The point is, both Leto and Paul saw the ultimate threat which would destroy humanity, and both of them saw the way to defeat it. But Paul chose to abandon the human empire which he had sworn to lead, leaving this task to his half-Fremen son. The Bene Gesserit also understood that it was necessary to take genes from the whole of humanity in order to evolve. Their breeding program, which eventually created Paul, involved genes being gathered from countless humans over endless generations. But Paul never had the genetic memory of the Fremen. His son did, and that's how he was able to come to the realization that the Bene Gesserit way of doing things was, while close, ultimately flawed. He took charge of the breeding program, and for 3,500 years he did his work, intent on thwarting the great enemy he saw looming. He knew that humankind had to scatter and diversify beyond anything ever seen before. He understood that stagnation was akin to death, and that includes stagnation of the natural human evolutionary process. So to push mankind to do what was necessary, he took everything from them, and upon his death, they scattered, fleeing deep into the furthest reaches of space, well beyond the bounds of the old empire, diversifying to an extent where one threat would never be able to find and seek out and destroy all of humankind. If Leto II had not been Fremen, if he had been, say, the son of Princess Irulan, would he have been able to commission the Arifa in that ancient Fremen way, choosing between evils? Or would he have made the same mistake as Paul, dooming humanity to a terrible end? It seems as though Herbert is implying that the Fremen memories, the ancient wisdom of the Zensunni wanderers which Leto possessed but Paul did not, was essential to why Leto II succeeded while his father failed. So with all that being said, it seems like Asimov's and Herbert's books are both pretty woke.
Ha! I told you those... Wait, But I
work it out. You're almost there.
So what you're saying is science fiction isn't becoming woke because of some SJW agenda?
It's always been woke. Science fiction writers have always been writing about these types of ideas. Gene Roddenberry had a black woman on the bridge of the Enterprise all the way back in 1966, and an Asian man, and a Russian. This was at the height of the Cold War, in the middle of the Civil Rights Movement. This was the most diverse cast to ever appear on television up until this point, and it was 100% intentional. Do you honestly think that that doesn't count as woke? I mean, are you kidding me? It goes even further. The first interracial kiss ever broadcast in America took place on Star Trek. Woke.
Okay, I get it.
No, I don't think you do, and plus, I'm having fun now. In the classic Season 3, Episode 15 episode of Star Trek, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, which aired January 11th, 1969, the Enterprise encounters a fleeing alien named Lokai, with a face that's black on one side and white on the other. He's being chased by an alien named Bell who looks exactly the same, except they've got black and white on opposite sides. It is explained in the episode that the entire conflict between these two groups of people who share a world is due to the fact that they have slightly different skin. And of course, Kirk and Spock are totally confused. They don't get racism because they're not even the same species. In the end, they simply don't understand why the people of that world were never able to let go of their hate for each other. Woke. And how many times in science fiction have we seen aliens or robots be presented as analogs for oppressed groups of people? The episode of Star Trek The Next Generation where Riker dates a transgender alien. Woke. The way robots are portrayed in Asimov's books. Woke. It goes on and on.
Alright, I've had it. This is all just virtue signaling. You didn't even talk about the new garbage Apple SJW Foundation show or the Trashville Nook movie. They turned the male characters into black females. They changed everything in favor of PC crap.
They aren't even out yet. You're basing these assumptions of wokeness off of a teaser trailer in the case of Foundation and a few still images in the case of Dune. But why does it matter anyway for such minor characters? Isn't it better to—
Because you can't change what the author intended.
Honestly, Organism, if you cared so much about authorial intent, you'd be more upset about David Lynch's movie, which by the way has a rainstorm at the end of it, which Frank Herbert hated. Denis Villeneuve's Dune movie is shaping up to be far more accurate than David Lynch's Dune ever dreamed to be. Again, I did a whole video on the problems with the David Lynch Dune movie. So honestly, Organism, don't you think you're just being a little bit dishonest?
Nope, not even a little bit. You're just wrong.
Okay, care to elaborate on how then?
Nope, you're just wrong. And you're an ugly liberal.
Okay, computer, eject foreign organism.
Ejecting foreign organism.
This video's trash.
I have got to install some better security. I have no idea how that guy keeps penetrating my trans-dimensional shield devices. Anyway, the thing is, guys, the word woke, like so many other things these days, doesn't really mean anything anymore. I asked on Twitter for people to send me their own definition of woke, and every single one was different. Here's the deal. You have hypocritical liberals that slap the term onto themselves, but then do nothing to actually fight oppression, unwilling to actually adjust the way they live for change. It's just a badge for them to show to their friends. And then on that same coin, there are people on the right that just slap the word woke on any and everything that they don't agree with. And it's even gotten to the point where often, even if one black character shows up in a film or TV show, it's immediately labeled as woke trash. Honestly, you're all ridiculous. That's why I live in another dimension. Alright guys, that's the video for today. Next, we actually for realsies this time, explore the capital world city of Trantor.
Is it done then?
Not yet, but the fool allowed me in his system for much longer this time. I nearly gained access. One more try should do it.
Do not fail me, Organism 9186. Gwyn cannot be allowed to continue his work. The fate of the Trolleon Empire depends upon it.
Hi, it's Quinn. If you enjoy my commentary, you should totally check out my book. I wrote it myself. It's kind of a scary story about witches. It's got some mystery in there. It's in a fantasy setting. I really like it a lot. It's in graphic novel form. Link in the description.